County of Somerset was made by posting on the bulletin board at the municipal complex and transmitted to the officially designated newspapers. A list of dates annually indicating that this work session regular meeting would take place at the Township of Franklin Municipal Complex at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation by Councilwoman Roz Sherman.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather here today as members of the Township Council, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Ms. McCarthy, please call the roll.
Councilman Chase,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Francois,
Here.
Mayor Kelly,
Here.
Councilman Kramer,
Here.
Councilman Prasad,
Here.
Councilman Regan, Councilwoman Sherman,
Here.
Councilman Vasanella,
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Here.
Thank you. There is one commendation for this evening, the National Distracted Driving Enforcement Campaign Proclamation. Whereas distracted driving is a serious and life-threatening practice that is preventable, whereas distracted driving can result in injuries and death to all users, motorists, pedestrians, and bicycles, and whereas the distracted driving occurs when drivers divert their attention away from the task of driving to focus on another activity instead, and whereas the increased health and well-being of the Franklin Township citizens are a direct result of increased enforcement and awareness about the dangers of distracted driving. And whereas, in order to reduce the number of crashes as well as improve driver safety, Township of Franklin motorists should commit to adopting and maintaining safe behavior behind the wheel. And whereas April 7th through April 15th, 2015 has been selected as the National Distracted Driving Enforcement Campaign. And whereas increased high-visibility enforcement of distracted driving laws coupled with publicity has proven to be an effective method to reduce distracted driving and save lives. Now, therefore, I, Christopher Kelly, Mayor, on behalf of the Township Council, do hereby proclaim and pronounce April 7th through 15, 2015 as the National Distracted Driving Enforcement Campaign in Franklin Township, and urge all citizens to always put the cell phone down, focus on the road, and buckle up when driving on our roadways. Drivers are reminded that if they drive and text, they will pay. There we are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you're very welcome. Hopefully this will spur some residents on to put the phone down while they're driving. Is there a motion to open the meeting for public discussion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. This meeting is open for public discussion on any item of interest which does not have a public hearing of its own. Anyone interested in speaking, please raise your hand and when recognized, give your name and address.
Bill Connell, 25 Spring Street. How you doing? Congratulations, Mr. Kelly. On I haven't been here since you became mayor. Good luck. I can't speak for the whole committee for open space, but after the meeting when we approved the budget, by the way, I owe you the motion for the approval of the budget. One of the things we discussed is possibly just giving one lump sum of $100,000 instead of breaking it up. We broke it up into a couple parts in the budget approval, but one of the suggestions was just to possibly do it as $100,000 and then you do what you need to do. There may be some details to work out, but as far as the budgeting goes, it was something that was brought up, and I just thought I would mention it tonight if you're going to be discussing the budget. Thank you.
Hello, Mary Paterace, 14 Gregory Lane. I know Mr. Vorlocker's tired of hearing the word park.
Yeah.
So I'm coming in because we were at the open space meeting and saw the redesign of Catalpa Park. It is a smaller design, and which is very nice, but we're still, overall, would rather keep Catalpa Park just free, just open space, trails and whatnot. The new revised plan still has the cricket fields 20 feet away from the condos on Arthur Glick. They're really 20 feet, 30 feet. I'm not an engineer, so, you know, I'm just kind of looking. The way it has been now, it's now pushed, it seems further towards the condos instead of a little more back, which is what we had asked for, if that was something that was doable, besides the fact that we prefer to leave it as truly open space. Our concern with the cricket people is the statement that the man that came up here who said there were 8 teams and they need a home field to play. We looked up the rules, and yes, they need to be able to have a home field to play. My thing is, this is a public park and recreation. Who's going to designate of those 4 teams that quote-unquote don't have a field yet are going to be able to use those fields? And how is that all going to be taken care of? Because you still have an issue with you don't have enough fields for what, in my opinion, sounds like a private type organization, if they are involved with the New Jersey Cricket Association. So I'm very concerned about that whether you can even on the smaller field, use the smaller field when you're using the larger field, so are you wasting a field if you can't use both? So, you know, so those are my concerns. And my final concern is, when we got the plans for the open space, there was no mention or no indication of the condos or the townhouses. We understand it's due to a legal issue that we don't own land. However, we are homeowners and we are neighbors. And this is a neighborhood park, if we're being told, and you're leaving out a majority of the neighbors who are going to be totally affected by this. So I feel as if when you present the plan to the public, you don't leave that big gapping open space from South Middlebush to where the property starts, because there are people there. There are neighbors. There's children that live in this condo association. When I first moved there wasn't that many family members. We have a bunch of little kids now, all small, under the age, I'd say under the age of 3 or 4. So you have issues with these kids. I have concerns when I talked to Councilman Passad about foul balls coming over off the cricket fields. You know, you gotta have kids back there playing. There's concerns. I would appreciate when the open meeting occurs that our buildings are represented as I think they should be, because it is our neighborhood. And we're supposed to have a neighborhood park, which we all didn't want. Thank you.
Please rise.
Johnny, it's Tibbs, 25 Parkside. I want to say hello to everybody. I've missed you guys. I haven't seen you guys in quite some time. And I want to congratulate Mayor Kelly on your appointment as being the mayor. And I also like to congratulate the candidates that's going to be running in the November election. I think that's a swell thing that's happening nowadays, and I'm looking forward to it. There's a couple things I just want to mention. Number one, I want to mention thank you, Kimberly, for Councilman Sparrow, for the library thing, they did manage to put up, after you mentioned the other thing, they did manage to put up something for the in the library for the Black Americans, being that most Black Americans use that. About 50% every time you walk in there, there's 50% of Black Americans in there. And for Black History Month, they did put a exhibit up, even though it was in the back of the bus. It was all the way in the back of the library where nobody could see. But maybe next year I will convince her that maybe we should put it in the front where we all can see it as we walking into the library.
How could they miss that?
Another thing, I'm understanding that we are now, with the Human Relations Commission meeting, they're gearing up to get it ready for the pool controversy. To thank you guys, first of all, for the approval in the budget for the pool. And, well, this year, the Human Relations Commission thought they all going to get together and get the parents together and get all the proper paperwork filled out and everything, so that we won't have another problem as we did for the past 3 years. It's ironic that, it's not funny at all, but most of the kids that in the beginning, that I first brought this thing up, we have lost most of them to either incarceration because of economic survival conditions. They've been moving to Bound Brook and South Bound Brook. As you know, most of the families nowadays in Franklin Township are being moved to Bound Brook because of the Section 8 and housing availabilities. So that's another concern that I'm going to have now. Even though we're going to get ready for them this year, well, we have a lot of kids that will be ready to use the pool again this year. But that's a major concern of mine. And also, Mr. Hornlacher, there's a business that informed me that he would like to donate some proceeds to the food bank, but he want to do it through myself and the community. And is there any proper procedures that we have to go through that can happen?
You want to make a donation to the food bank?
Yeah, the business does.
No, I understand. The food bank has no affiliation with the township. The food bank is an independent organization, so they can make donations
Sure.
directly to the food bank.
To them.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
I thought there might have been some.
No, there's no pass-through. You can make any donations directly to the food bank. You should speak with Mr. Hasner in reference to
Frank
that.
Hasner.
Frank, sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much. Okay.
Pat Gianotto, Hamilton Street, resident, business owner. Everybody knows me. I'm a little lost for words. I understand we had additional policing coming down to Hamilton Street in our budget, and then I've been informed that that's been reduced. And I feel that it's a necessary thing that we're looking for down there. Our advisory board was highly recommending it. And it's kind of disappointing that it got cut to 2 people. Everybody that I've talked to felt it was a good thing to keep the area better, more secure, safer, and I really don't want to go into any deeper details than that at this point in time, but I think it's a mistake that's being made for the minor amount of money that two more additional police officers would cost in the overall budget to make our area safer for our residents down there, our business owners down there. We're trying to bring people in to develop, and it's hard to convince a developer to come in and spend a ton of money to put additional housing up down there. There'll be additional residents and retail stores on the first floor. And if you don't take care of the security end of it first, you're not going to attract the people that have the money to spend to build these buildings. And then we could also, as we build the buildings and have more residents, it's basically, I know a couple people that are interested in doing the smaller apartments that are looking to attract the student housing from Rutgers area. That will bring more people up into the area. That'll help our retail stores down there. And we're not doing what we need to do is the important part of the security in that area. I don't know where to go besides being very disappointed for removing the 2. I think the 4 was the right level where we should have been. I don't want to sound ungrateful either on the same token, but if we want to try to get Hamilton Street and bring it to where everybody's expectations are, you need to be able to put the money into it. And I think this is a major, major mistake. And that's a personal feeling. I can't bring that there as the board. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else here to speak?
Seeing no one come forward, Mayor, a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We're up to the council comments. I'll start on this side. Councilwoman Sherman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have just 2 comments. One, I am very, very happy to be part of the Youth Alliance here in Franklin Township, and I have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Alice Sipowicz and her department for what they do to make people aware of certain problems having to do with our youth. This year, you've probably seen the sign on the lawn about parents who host lose the most, having to do with alcohol consumption among young underage students, and that if you have a party at your home and you allow these children to drink, there are laws. You can find yourself in deep trouble, such as that teacher who recently had an inebriated child pass out in her home. I think her whole career is going to be ruined, and she's probably been arrested as a result of that. So the theme this year of what the Youth Alliance is doing is actually alcohol consumption prevention and awareness, so people are aware of how pervasive this problem is. There are 2 events coming up I'd like to make the community aware of. On March 28th at Sampson G. Smith School, there is going to be the 2015 Teen Summit. So there's going to be all kinds of programs having to do with alcohol prevention. And anyone interested is to contact the Recreation Department at 732-873-1991 and hit option 4. That's primarily geared toward the students. Then coming later in April 23rd, is now having to do with the prom that is coming up. It's called Parties, Proms, and Pitfalls. So again, another program for teens having to do with alcohol, and especially around prom time. So please, you can call that same number and find out more details and let people know if you want to participate. That one is for the teens and their parents. I strongly urge parents to participate. You can do so much to help your young student understand that how bad it is, and your influence is really, really major. The other thing I just wanted to touch base on is the Franklin Day Festival. We have started planning for that event. It is going to be in September, once more, September 19th. And if anyone has any interest in either being a sponsor, being a exhibitor, an entertainer, food vendor, volunteer, please reach out to me. My number is up here. I think it's still up here, 732-718-6942. I'll be happy to talk to you and get you in touch with the right people so you can either help us or participate in the wonderfully successful Franklin Day Festival. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Vasanella?
Just have to mention Central Jersey Housing Resource Center, which is the organization that we contract to handle our affordable housing needs and financial literacy needs in Franklin Township. It's having its 23rd annual awards breakfast, where they honor a builder or an individual or organization that's done wonderful things the past year for affordable housing in Central Jersey. A couple of winners were here in Franklin Township in recent years for some of the projects that we have. I just want to encourage people to consider going to the breakfast. All proceeds support that nonprofit group, which again is contracted to help Franklin and does quite a bit for the housing needs in this town. It's April 29th at the Shannock Golf Course. Thank you.
Councilman Prasad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of things. To Mary Pat, that was just a concept plan that you saw. It's not a final drawing, and nothing's going to be done without your input. So whatever happens will be something that everybody will agree to. So the neighbors are not going to be ignored. We invite you to participate and let us know, how we can improve upon that and make it acceptable to everybody. And so we welcome the dialogue on that. And as far as allocating the fields, there are people who've been on a waiting list for a field for the last 8 years that I know of. And, based on that first come, first served basis is how recreation actually will allocate and manage those fields. So it is the township that manages it and assigns those things. As far as foul balls, those things don't exist in cricket. The cricket pitch itself is in the middle of the field and not on one end, and it's almost larger than a football field, regulation cricket field. So as a result, it's very difficult to hit the ball outside of the boundary. And if you do, it's the equivalent of a home run, but you barely get it over the boundary. So that's, we invite you to come and see when the season starts on Western Road when they're playing. Hopefully you can see what that game is all about. As far as Mr. Giannato, I'm a big believer that there's a lot of potential in Hamilton Street, and, but at the same time, if we can get some developers who can come in and give us multi-use retail, office, and residential type of housing, especially if we can, make that available for Rutgers students and the residents, et cetera, at St. Peter's and Robert Wood. If such a developer is there, the town will bend over backwards to accommodate whatever their needs and requirements were. I was at Johnson & Johnson when they threatened to leave New Brunswick in the late 70s. And New Brunswick stepped up and said, okay, what's it going to take to keep you to stay, get you to stay? And they had a whole laundry list of things that they wanted done. And New Brunswick Development Corporation was born, and a lot of the changes that you're seeing today happened.
I'll give you
So that made the difference. But let's find out what those developers, please, bring them to us. We will be glad to work with them. But the key thing is finding those people. And unless we have somebody willing to negotiate with us, we, are just spending money without having something targeted. So hopefully this will be more targeted at the needs of whoever comes into town to help us change the face of Hamilton Street. And there has to be a vision and a plan, and that's basically, I've said it all along, and, we'll play an active part in whatever rezoning you're looking at, but we have to keep in mind that there's a bigger vision that has to be there to revive all of Hamilton Street and see what we can do to bring more traffic, more residents, and more business, so that everybody is served well with it. So, and not only there, but there's Davidson Avenue that needs a whole new approach because things are changing as far as businesses are concerned, and even the young millennials are looking at different ways of living. So they don't want to go to the suburbia, and they want to be in commuting distance of places, and Hamilton Street is ideal for that. So there's all kinds of opportunities that we should be evaluating and putting together into some kind of a master plan. So we're embarking on that master plan, and part of that would be both Davidson as well as the Hamilton Street redevelopment as such. So it's part of it. So please, it's not going to happen overnight. There's no magic wand. We have to come up with engaging with the potential developers and actually trying to get some recruiters to actually bring these people to the table. Unless you're able to interest some of the local people like Rutgers and the hospitals, or even J&J for that matter of fact, then we can do something. So, but it's ideal for that extension of New Brunswick into Somerset and Franklin Township. So, with that, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Chase.
On Hamilton Street, the plan that was presented to the Financial Oversight Committee called for 2 additional officers so that 2 could be assigned to Hamilton Street for community policing. In discussion there, we felt that it would be even better if there were 4 additional officers so that there would be community policing every day, since they have 4 days on, 3 days off. However, subsequent discussions among a broader range of council members pointed out that it's really a much bigger matter for the township to get the empty buildings and parts of buildings up in close to 287 filled again, so that we are not paying so much in tax reductions. When the building owner comes in and says, my assessment is too high, and we wind up paying them back for a reduction over a number of years. That's probably one of the biggest uncertainty in our current budget. So after that, we decided not to go all the way to zero, but to go back to the two original additional police officers, with two officers, not necessarily the new ones, to be assigned to community policing in Hamilton Street. And if we do enough better in the area up by 287 and keeping our tax assessments up, then maybe next year or the year after we can go to 4 officers for community policing. But we have to balance various calls on the township and not just police enforcement in Hamilton Street, but ensuring that the buildings up by 287 are full and paying full taxes. On Catalpa, the engineers preparing the concept plan were told to put that the small cricket field as far away from the boundary toward the townhouses as possible, and in the plans that I saw, it was. I mean, as possible means without getting into the wetlands area. So I don't understand how you can think that it's only 20 feet away. But that said, as Councilman Prasad has said, we still have a lot of steps to go through, including the full public hearing. And I hope that residents will be able to see some cricket matches in going on the few fields that we do have available. We got cut back one when the sewage authority dug up the field in front of Pine Grove School, and that has not been available for cricket of late. So we do need more cricket fields, and that's a very flat property that would be ideal for cricket fields. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Hamilton, Mr. Chase handled it well. I'll just add, in a budget of 2 years ago, or even last year, I don't think we could have done 2 police. You'll be seeing more in the budget that we're in better shape now. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're in better shape. And so I'm happy that we can at least provide 2. I wish we could provide more, but there are constraints. On Catalpa, the drawings that did not show the townhouses was an idiosyncrasy of the method used, not at all an intention to exclude or deceive or to hide. And the latest version I've seen includes that. It overlaid the Google Maps or whatever source it was of the picture, aerial photos, and that's now included. As far as the procedure, this council will make every effort to ensure that there is voice from the public. And I think what's important this time, as opposed to some of the missteps of the past, is that both interests, or all interests, have an opportunity to speak with one another, share their concerns, and perhaps a mutual decision can be reached. I was at a East Millstone Historic Society meeting, and I tried to get, they had some questions. I'll try to answer some of those questions for anyone watching, but also others might be interested. they were concerned, of course, the bridge in East Millstone on Amwell Road is under repair. The word is by the end of the month. and we
Patient for my report, Councilman.
and we of this month, and we have reminded them there were only 28 days in the month, but maybe Mr. Vornlocker will have an update. But anyway, the bridge is out, and the concern was that overweight trucks were going over the bridge, and their concern was that the sign on the bridge talks about the gross registration weight of the vehicle, and that's how it's limited. I've learned from Mr. Vornlocker that those signs are actually inaccurate, illegal, if you will, that it is on the actual weight of the vehicle, not on their gross weight. And if you think about it, it makes sense. It's the stress on the bridge is not the number on the piece of paper, it's the actual weight of the vehicle. And while I wish our officers could enforce those weights, unfortunately, that it is required by state law that the state police are the ones to enforce that. We have asked them to enforce at other times, and they tell us about their limitations. I guess that concludes my talk, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Wright?
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things, but we had a redevelopment meeting this past week on Monday, and I'm going to ask our deputy mayor, if she will, to fill everyone in on that issue. Deputy Mayor?
Last night, we had a redevelopment agency meeting, and we had a potential developer come in and present a developer's presentation on bringing in a Wawa on Route 27, currently on the parcel of land where Guaranteed Motors is currently, which is a pretty big parcel of land. The developers that are, the name of the developer is Franklin Juliet LLC, and it's a 50-50% partnership between their entity, they're going to provide all the hands-on development of that property, as well as the ARC entity, who is going to be providing all the required capital to build on that development property. So we reviewed their presentation. We directed our attorney to prepare a redeveloper's agreement. Once it goes through the redevelopment agency, the plans will be vetted through the planning board. And it passed unanimously. Everybody on the redevelopment agency was happy to hear about the Wawa concept going to be on that Route 27 parcel of land where the Guaranteed Motors is. Guaranteed Motors has been there for a while. There are some DEP concerns, but we think that we have a viable project that will be coming forward soon.
Somerset Street.
Thank you, Councilman Wright. Was that good enough?
Thank you.
Okay.
Also, some people actually want to know, what do our students do in Franklin Township? My son and my daughter both were charter school students, and this new charter school that opened up, the Thomas Edison Energy Smart Charter School, they received the recognition this week from our freeholders. And I would just like to read you a part of that. This week, a presentation was given to the students of the Thomas Edison Energy Smart Charter School in Franklin Township in recognition of special spaceflight experiments they created for the NASA-affiliated program. The 4th, 5th, and 6th graders participated in the Student Spaceflight Experiments program, Mission 7 Odyssey program, launched by the National Center for Earth and Space Science Education in collaboration with NASA and NanoRinks LLC. The program offers a unique opportunity for students to design innovative experiments that will be used to execute during spaceflight by NASA astronauts. As one of 2 schools in New Jersey participating in the program, remember I just said 2 schools in the state of New Jersey participating in the program, the Thomas Edison Energy Smart Charter School is actively engaged with the program and will be throughout the 2014-2015 school year. students that we sometimes malign, sometimes we don't know what's going on, sometimes we don't pay attention to. But as one of 2 schools in the state actively working toward experiments for our NASA astronauts is very important. I like that. You should like that also. Another thing where our students will be involved in, Double Dutch. Watch this station closely. It's coming to Franklin. Stay tuned. Also, as my fine council members brought up, we do have a land use meeting coming up tomorrow on which Councilman Vassanella, excuse me?
I said you do.
Councilman Vassanella, Councilman Prasad, Councilman Chase, and myself, we're all members of that committee, and we do hear the thoughts and concerns of everyone, and we'll put that to use. And Councilman Chase down the First Ward, he's holding our feet to the fire on this one, so I'm going to give that to Councilman Chase. On our last bit of news, at the last council meeting, the thought of having more police came into play, especially down on Hamilton Street for the business district. And after some of my comments, I was stopped by a couple of people to ask, hey, Carl, what is your thought on this issue? Hey, Carl, why are we having police here and not over here? Why is this area getting special treatment here and not over there? Some were concerned about the cost of the operation. Some were concerned about the details because, as we know, once you place the police on the force, it is up to the chief of police to decide where they go. Manpower, force. And this is a big issue. And it won't be decided. We'll put the budget together. We'll all talk about it. But it's a short term. I mean, it's a short time to get together on it, but it's a long-term project. And I'm happy to hear from some of my council members about the things that could go down on Hamilton Street and that they're actually engaged in Hamilton Street. So I want to thank my fellow council members about that. Mr. Mayor, that's about it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Francois.
Everybody weighed in on Hamilton Street, so I think I will too. Mr. Giannato, I'm a little concerned that you were disappointed over the number 2 for the police officers that we're going to put into this budget instead of 4. I think that considering the fact that the township is demonstrating that we are investing in that area by allotting money in the budget for those 2 officers. It may not be all that we need, but it's a beginning. It's a new beginning. It's a start. And we also are allocating some of the funds that we were going to use on 4 to hire some economic development expertise, which is very much needed in that area to help us improve and attract and build the business, that business district. So I'm thinking, let's crawl before we walk. It's a start. We're demonstrating that we are investing in that area, and there's always more that we can do, but we're trying to do something there. So hopefully you'll be satisfied with that, and we'll continue moving forward, which is a step in the right direction. And then on Catalpa Park, I just want to say that I think you've heard up here that we're not going to make the same mistake twice. What we did with Millbush Park, we are not going to do the same thing with Catalpa Park. And we do have, this township governing body has made a commitment that we will listen to the needs of the residents. And we're looking to establish a pseudo-steering committee that will engage people that live in that area, and also probably more of our land use subcommittee, township council people. And we're really going to take into consideration all the input that we get before we move forward down there. We will not make the same mistake twice. They say there's what do they call insanity? When you continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. We have learned our lesson with Middlebush Park. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for your input. Stay engaged, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Hopefully I can read my notes here on this. I'd like to thank you for the congratulations of me being appointed mayor. It really does mean a lot. And it's great to see people out here. This is how government works. Everyone except me was voted in, I was appointed in. We work for you. You tell us what you want done, and that's what we do. We use our judgment based on your input, and that's how things get done here in town. So keep coming out, keep letting us know what you think, and we will work accordingly. Back to Councilwoman Sherman. Franklin Day on September 19th, I think that's a great day. It's actually my birthday, so I will plan to be there and celebrate my birthday with you all. Last weekend, several councilmen and I had the opportunity to go to the first annual Franklin Food Bank chili cook-off. It was in the senior center, and I'd really like to commend the food bank and all of the firemen, the firehouses, and the several restaurants that supplied their chilies. I think they raised, at last count, somewhere a little over $1,300 towards the food bank. So I think that was a very, very great event, despite the freezing cold weather and impending snow. I know it seems small, but I wanted to commend the police on their swift investigation into the destruction of property out on Old Georgetown Road. There were several, not quite juveniles, but some young kids that were destroying mailboxes, and I believe after a very quick investigation, the perpetrators were caught, or alleged perpetrators were caught. I had the opportunity to drive through the parking lot of the library yesterday, and I thought it was a great thing that at about 10 minutes to 10, there was a line of people out there just ready to come in. It was mothers with their kids, it was parents with their little kids, just maybe 15 people kind of lined up ready to get in. I thought that, that's a great sign for, for what we're doing here in town. Back to Councilman Wright, on the Thomas Edison Charter School, there's also a group of students there that they were going to be here at this council meeting or next council meeting to present to us. I invited them in. They couldn't be here because they qualified for the National Science Fair. So they have a team that within the next few meetings will come to present the results of that, so we can all encourage through their experience the rest of the students out here. To get back to the open space, I was at that meeting. There was a vote taken, and the Open Space Committee did recommend to pay for salaries of workers for park maintenance, but afterwards there was a fairly lively discussion about the open space taking money out of their trust fund to just fund a set amount rather than salaries to give to the township manager to see what, as he sees fit, to go from there. I personally like that idea of the way that works, rather than having a salary and everything that goes along with it. Just, what a park costs to maintain. This is what the funds are to do it. Then on the Hamilton Street, I take a slightly different tact. I'm not a police officer. I don't get how that is. But I talked with the chief, and I get his train of thought that I think if you have the police out there first, get everything organized, safe, whether it's actual safe or it's a perception of safety, then you get business owners to move in, and then you get residents to move in. You don't get them there first and then try and put police in afterwards. That is my thought on it. And then that is about it for all of my comments. So we are now on to the Township Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items to discuss. First, I'll just make some brief comments on Catalpa and the presentation to the Open Space Advisory Committee, which took place last week. And I just want to remind everyone that my direction from this council has been to make this process as detailed and transparent as I possibly can. The purpose behind bringing the concept plans to the various committees, and in this particular case, this concept plan has now been seen by the Open Space Advisory Committee. It will subsequently be seen next by the Advisory Rec Council, and then it will go to the Planning Board before there will be a public hearing. And the purpose of bringing the plans, the concept plans to these various committees, while I don't discount the fact that these are public meetings, the purpose behind bringing those concept plans is for the review of those particular committees. The public presentation will take place at the public hearing, and at that point, full graphics will be done, and it'll be a full presentation by the engineering firm that was responsible for developing the concept plan. It will be an opportunity for council to ask the engineer and staff members who were involved in this process any questions they might have. There'll be a public portion where any questions or concerns can be raised. Specific answers to questions will be given then as it relates to the concept. But these committee meetings are for the benefit of those committees. And so while I recognize the concerns of the public, and I'm taking everything I can into consideration when we move forward with this as far as the public is concerned, at this point in the process, the goal is to get the input of the various committees. And I think it was a very productive meeting with the Open Space Advisory Committee as it related to Catalpa. We got a lot of good feedback, and that will be reported back to council when we have that public hearing. So I just wanted to touch on that. The second one is as Councilman Kramer commented, I did have a meeting with the New Jersey Department of Transportation last week in reference to the Amwell Road Bridge, as well as some upcoming work that's proposed on the Route 518 bridge over the canal. I was given information by their public relations department that was in attendance at the meeting that the 514 bridge, the Amwell Road Bridge, is still on schedule with these emergency repairs to be completed by the end of the month, which means basically by the end of this week. That's not the permanent repairs, that's not the permanent replacement, that's still on their capital plan and will be conducted in the future. But the bridge, I've been assured, will be open, weather permitting, by the end of the month. In reference to Councilman Kramer's questions about weight restrictions on that bridge, certainly that's been a concern of that bridge as well as all of the other bridges that we have over our western boundary lines, that both the canal and river bridges. Commercial vehicle enforcement is the responsibility of the New Jersey State Police by statute. The Franklin Township Police Department does not have the statutory right to weigh trucks, and it is required when it comes to bridges. Bridges have true weight limits, and they are enforced by the New Jersey State Police by physically weighing taking axle weights of the trucks that are stopped and believed to be in violation of those weight limits. I know that there are concerns about these bridges, and certainly if anyone were to view the YouTube video that the New Jersey Department of Transportation posted on this particular bridge and the deflection of the bridge decking while vehicles were going over it, they will see why this bridge needed to be closed. It's rather disturbing, and these repairs will rectify that. But we'll work continually with the state police as they have manpower available to conduct bridge enforcement when we can. So that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We're now on to the Community Development Block Grant Program. Is Deborah Mitchell, will you please come and give your presentation?
Good evening, everyone. Make sure I get the mic here. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Tonight, we're here to kick off our Community Development Block Grant Program for 2015. By way of explanation, the Township of Franklin is an entitlement community. We're eligible to receive an annual federal grant to assist in providing decent housing and a suitable living environment to our low and moderate income residents. Franklin qualifies for this funding due to the low and moderate income census tracts in the East Franklin section of the township. That would be the area near Hamilton Street, from Somerset Street to Franklin Boulevard, and it encompasses that particular area of the township. This year, the township is eligible for $254,835. In order to receive these funds, the township must develop a consolidated plan to cover the planning period commencing September 1st, 2015 through August 31st, 2019, and an annual plan for the year of 2015. I believe I had submitted to you earlier a schedule which details the timeline for accomplishing those tasks. The consolidated plan and the annual plan will be drafted with input from the community stakeholders and presented for public input for a 30-day period in May. Both documents will then return to council for a final public hearing on June 23rd, 2015. And the entire package is due to HUD no later than July 14th, 2015. The funds received will be allocated based upon the priority needs discovered during our consolidated plan process. And the activities must also meet the community development block grant eligibility requirements for the program. The activities undertaken in this program must either be directly benefited to the low and moderate income persons, or in an area where a majority of the low and moderate income residents reside. I have posted the grant application on the township webpage. There are copies of the application also available in the township clerk's office, and applications are due by March 16th, 2015. Anyone have any other questions? Okay. All right.
Are there any?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to open the meeting for discussion of the 2015 Community Development Block Grant Program Consolidated Plan 2015 to 2019?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The meeting is open for discussion of the 2015 Community Development Block Grant Program Consolidated Plan 2015-2019. Anyone interested in speaking, please raise your hand, and when recognized, give your name and address.
Mr. Mayor, seeing no one come forward, or you want to speak? Oh.
I didn't think this was going to come up. Is this plan, is the applications for this funding for 2015, is it, are all the applications due by March the 15th?
16,
March the 16th?
2 weeks.
Does the applications have to do specifically with housing? Or does it do with anything within the social services spectrum of the program?
She nods yes.
Yes. It's housing, social services, building improvements. You want to come up and address him?
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
Deborah's going to answer your questions, Johnny.
Speaking to the mic.
Have a seat, have a seat. To be more specific, the applications are available. They cover public service activities that would be anything for the community. Like we funded daycare programs. We funded the summer camp program, your favorite. We fund all of those kind of activities out of that portion. There's a 15% set aside for that. Okay, then under public facilities, we can fund rehabilitation activities for buildings, which we did Parkside. We did
The door.
Parkside Senior Building doors. Right, and we did the Wyland Senior Citizens Center. We did the bathrooms over there, and now we're working on the kitchens. Those kind of activities can be funded with the block grant money.
Okay.
Okay? You good? All right.
And Johnny, I hope the garden committee will apply for a grant to expand the garden.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions from the public?
Mr. Mayor, seeing no one else come forward, I move that we close this portion of the public hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, we are on to the first reading of the Hamilton Street Special Improvement District budget. I present Resolution Number 15-69, Introduction of CY 2015 Hamilton Street SID Budget and Set Public Hearing Date, March 24th, 2015, to the Township Council for consideration.
Mr. Mayor, much like an ordinance, this is just an introduction. At adoption, there'll also be a public hearing.
Motion to introduce.
Seconded.
Ms. McCarthy, can you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
We're on to the council discussion items, the year 2015 municipal budget wrap-up.
Fingers crossed.
I see light.
I see light too. Good for another day.
Oh, there you go.
Is it that bad?
It's been shaky lately. We had to set up a separate projector and screen for the planning board.
Really?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go right ahead, Councilman Kramer.
Thank you. So we've already heard about the total budget. We've gone through it virtually line by line. And the total budget is $57,191,197.15. That includes the two police that we've just talked about and some money for economic development. This is going to increase the budget by 1/4%. So less than 1%, 1/4%. So what we have to decide on is we've gone over expenditures. We have to decide the thing that affects the citizens most, and that is revenues, which is another word for taxes. We have several sources of revenue, but obviously the largest source is taxes. So in order to figure this out, a few years ago, I, working with our financial advisor, worked on a spreadsheet model of our budget and our fund balance to see what effect our expenditures and our revenues would have on the fund balance. So fund balance is fancy New Jersey talk for the money we have in the bank. So how much do we have left over at the end of each year? And mind you, we would be nervous if we had less than $10 million in our fund balance. Our budget is different than the school budget. You know, we have to pay out money to the schools to the county. We collect all that money and we have to pay them. And if we don't collect all the money, because people don't pay their taxes, we still have to pay the schools. And if there is a tax appeal and we have to pay that tax appeal, we still have to pay the school and the county their money. So that's why we carry part of why we carry a minimum fund balance of $10 million. So what this table shows is in 2014, what this is showing is different amounts that we may desire to raise taxes. Down here is we're raising taxes 2%, 3%, 3.5%, 4%-ish, because there's some years that the law won't allow us to go above 4%. And at the top is the maximum that allowed by law in each individual year. So our fund balance at the end of 2014 was $18,000, almost $19,000.
Million.
Sorry. Thank God it's $1 million. So $18 million. And in 2000, so we've burned through some of that, and basically we've burned through $900,000 this year, so we're down to $18 million roughly. Now we can go through the model and look at various amounts of increasing our taxes, what that is going to do to us, and how much we will be leaking. So there's a lot of numbers. It's difficult to look at. Council has, for their benefit, this sheet that I handed out to everyone, and it's part of the public record. If you look at it, it has this table, and then it has the graphs that I'm about to show, so you can look at them all at once. But rather than looking at the individual numbers, we can look at the effect of various levels of taxation depending on, or the effect on the fund balance of the various levels of taxation. So the highest line is if we tax maximum allowable by law. Some people out there might be thinking, but I thought that's 2%. No, there are waivers. We don't have to get waivers. We can go above 2% for things like pension costs, healthcare costs, et cetera. So this, using the model, going out forward, this is where the fund balance would be at the end of 2019 if we were to tax the maximum amount, maximum amount, 4%, 3.5%, 3%, and you can see what happens if we only do the 2% that everyone thinks is the cap, that we start falling off the chart. Mind you, the bottom of this chart is $10 million, not zero. One thing I'm thrilled to say is every year prior to this, at any amount of taxation other than the maximum, we were falling off the chart, and we were predicting that in X number of years, say 4 years or 5 years, we would run out of money. Council has pinched its pennies and made the tough decisions, so we are no longer in that position. We still have a problem because these lines are sloping downward, but in the future, but we are in a much better position. This other graph, it basically is the slope of this graph, or the loss of fund balance. And notice I have inverted the y-axis here, so minus numbers are on top and positive numbers on the bottom. So a minus loss of fund balance would be actually a gain in fund balance. So the higher on this chart, the better. And again, we're looking at 2% all the way up to the maximum amount. So what I'm going to, what financial oversight has come up with, the recommendation of financial oversight is that we tax at 3%. We increase the tax by 3%. And that would be this line right here. And that would leave us at the end of 2019 still bleeding out at almost $2 million a year. though you can see it's beginning to improve. We would have still, at that amount, we would have almost $15 million. So you're bleeding out $2 million a year at $15 million. You still have 7 years to go. So we're good for a decade that way. I'm also, you know, we're better if we tax at 4% and even better if we tax higher, but obviously that's pain to our citizens. And the other thing I want to point out is these budget models have been conservative. We are generally doing better than the prediction, as opposed to how Washington often does it. They make a grandiose prediction and never meet it. We're doing better than the prediction. So, we are recommending 3% this year with an eye on it next year that maybe we'll have to go back to 4%. We have been increasing taxes at 4% a year, so this will be the lowest tax increase that we've given in several years because, as I said, we're doing the hard work. We are no longer falling off the graph, and maybe we can ease up a little. So the suggestion of financial oversight would be to increase taxes by approximately 3% this year, keeping an eye on it for next year. So what does that mean? The number that everyone looks for is what does that mean to the average house? The average home is about $309,000 this year, up from by about $3,500 from last year. These numbers aren't certified yet, but they're going to be pretty close. And that would mean to the average home, the 3% tax increase would be an increase in the municipal budget, the municipal tax of $3.84. So, I'm sorry, $31.84. So roughly $32. One last thing, and then I'll be done, that I want to point out is in 2009, our budget, the budget for the municipality, was $59.5 million. We are proposing a $57,200,000 budget. So this is 4% lower than in 2009. Again, I commend council for its penny pinching and tight money while still providing services. And again, the recommendation, which I think we need to decide tonight, is 3% tax increase.
Are there any questions, discussion?
Just a quick question, just for clarity for the public. The largest numbers in the budget, are they not the health care and the pension payments?
Well, the largest single thing is salary.
Oh, salary, yes, of course.
But then I would have to, health care and pension are large. The manager's going to have a better.
The manager's going to have a better handle on that.
Yeah.
So certainly, healthcare, insurance in general, our liability insurance, which goes up annually along with the healthcare benefits, and although last year we saw a minimal increase in our healthcare benefits, this year we saw about a 7% increase on our overall healthcare benefits. Certainly pension contributions, I think there's a misperception among many about the contributions that the municipality makes, and we hear much talk about the state skipping their payments. Well, our municipality does not skip our payments, and in fact, they are a rather significant cost to the township for the employer contributions to the pension for all of our full-time employees. Certainly utilities is a large expense. We have, many facilities, and they require heat and electric, and that's, And we also, one of our big expenses is street lighting. We pay over $1 million a year in street lighting costs just to light the streets throughout the township. So those are
And road
some of the
paving.
big ones.
And road paving also.
And certainly we're looking at in this particular year's budget another $2.5 million in road overlay, and certainly while that's a capital bonded expense, we then pay debt service, which we have to pay our debt, and we do that, and that's another large expense.
Thank you.
Just
There
a
any other
question for the
questions?
manager.
Councilman Prasad?
Our bond rating, though,
Our bond rating is one of the highest for a municipality in the state of New Jersey. We're at AA+ on our bond rating, and that is absolutely a direct reflection on council's efforts to keep our debt ratio as low as it is, and certainly our financial stability is what that bond rating is based on, so that should be an indication in support of what Councilman Kramer has already told you tonight.
In summary, we are not out of the woods, but we can see the edge of the woods, and we really have made huge progress. I'll remind everyone that when all the ward council people took office this last time, or the first time in 2010, we were going to run out of money in mid-2012. And now we are good for a decade, more work to be done, but we are really in good shape, and our financial advisor and our CFO tells us compared to many towns in New Jersey, we are in very good shape. Still work to be done.
And can I piggyback on what you just said, Councilman? And in order to stay in good shape and maintain that financial stability, we're recommending the 3% increase. That's the bottom line.
Seconded. Okay. Okay.
So unless any other council member objects or whatever has another suggestion, that is our recommendation to the manager you're submitting the budget on March
We're planning on introducing the budget to council on March 10th.
March 10th. So that will be the final number. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one quick question. When you were talking about the financial models on these, it goes back to 2014. Were they done beforehand? And if so, how accurate were they?
So, yeah, they've been done multiple years. We've been doing this probably 4 years, roughly. They have shown us having a bit less money than we have each year. It is a conservative model. I like the model. It's not going to lead us astray, and that's why we are taking the risk of only doing 3%. If you really look at that graph, that green line, the line in the middle, leaves us at about $15 million, and we're quote unquote only bleeding $1 million a year. So if we were to keep everything stable there, we'd be going out another 15 years. That's really good. And that would be, if you absolutely believe the model, then that might be where you'd want to go. But because these models have been conservative, we're comfortable with trying 3% this year, and then next year, if the model is dead on accurate and we're not doing quite as well, it's not very much to recover back to the 4%. So we're gonna take a little bit of a chance, but I don't think it's much of a gamble, because it doesn't, 1 year off 1% doesn't matter. It's the cumulative amount that matters. You can see how the graph spreads out over time. So we're going to try to reduce the pain of the residents by doing 3%, and we'll recheck it again next year, because these models tend to be a little conservative.
Mayor?
Councilman Vasanella?
I had a question. Last few days I was thinking about the unknowns that we come up, good and bad. In particular, I'm concerned about anything that might come up unexpected cost-wise. And I'm just wondering, I believe I know the answer, but if we find out as we review our road situation after this horrendous winter that is not over, relevant to ice and freezing, and we find that our roads, to keep, talking about projections and how we've been looking at things years ahead, and I think we've done wonderful in the way of our road resurfacing and repair estimates and progress over the last several years. But getting back to the point, if we find that when we do our spring review that there's many more roads than we had anticipated, understandably because we can't tell until the thaw, and we wanted to up that, which I'm hoping we don't have to, but to stay on track, and I know my colleagues here work on Public Works Committee, realize we've been doing well, but a really bad winter could throw us off track. Are we at liberty to increase that bond at all? I believe we dedicate 5% of the bond cost in the budget. So would we actually have to put a contingent in there if enough council people thought it was a concern, to raise the, if, only under an extreme circumstance?
I don't know that any additional money needs to be funded into the capital improvement fund. And certainly if there was a need to increase beyond the $2.5 million that we propose in the capital plan, by capital ordinance, council has the right to expend that money and increase that number, through, as we move into that. You are going to adopt an ordinance when the time comes to fund the overlay project for this year. The plan calls for $2.5 million, but the fund has sufficient funds in it if you were to increase it, that we would not have to increase the budget now. I certainly hope that that's not the case. My anticipation is that that's not the case.
I hope not.
And certainly, but that would be, as in any other expenditure, any other appropriation that council makes. There's only several ways that we can spend money in the state of New Jersey, and one of them is by capital ordinance. You can make that decision when you adopt that ordinance, what that number is. That 2.5% is part of our plan, but if there was a need to increase that number, certainly you have the right to do that.
Great. When we don't have to do anything now, we'll have that option emergent. Okay, that was the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? We move on to the approval of the minutes. The following minutes are hereby presented for approval by the Township Council. Township Council budget hearing, February 9th, 2015 at 7 p.m. Township Council work session, regular meeting, February 10th, 2015 at 7 p.m. Township Council budget hearing, February 12th, 2015 at 7 p.m.
Motion to approve all three.
Is there a second? Okay. Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Councilman Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella.
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
Warrants in the amount of $6,327,335.19 on February 24th, 2015 are presented to the Township Council for payment.
Motion for payment.
Second.
Ms. McCarthy, will you poll the council?
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Councilman Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella.
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So we just paid $6 million out in warrants. That's why we have to keep a $10 million fund. Thank you.
Thank you for the, for pointing, or explaining that. Thank you for that editorial comment. Okay, we are at the public hearing and adoption of ordinances on second reading. Ordinance number 4096-15. An ordinance authorizing the private sale of township-owned land in Block 95, lots 33 and 34, 140 Churchill Avenue, and blocks 95, lots 15, 16, 178 Churchill Avenue, in the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, Habitat for Humanity. The Township Attorney has approved the affidavit of publication, and public hearing is in order.
I move final passage of the ordinance.
No, it's public hearing.
Public hearing.
Oh,
Seconded.
sorry, I move for the hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. This meeting is open for public discussion on this ordinance. If anyone is interested in speaking, please raise your hand, and when recognized, give your address.
Seeing no one come forward, I move that we close this portion of the public hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move for final passage of the ordinance.
Yeah.
Seconded.
Okay, Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Councilman Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella.
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Okay. Now, we're on to ordinance number 4097-15, a bond ordinance providing for the construction and installation of a 9/11 memorial in and by the Township of Franklin in the County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, reappropriating $18,508.40 in excess bond proceedings from bond ordinance number 3474, not needed for their original purpose to finance the costs thereof. The Township Attorney has approved the affidavit of publication, and a public hearing is in order.
Motion for public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. A meeting is open for public discussion on this ordinance. Anyone interested in speaking, please raise your hand, and when recognized, give your name and address.
Your turn.
Seeing nobody coming forward, I motion we close the public section of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Motion for passage.
Second.
Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Councilman Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella.
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Okay. Ordinance number 4098-15, an ordinance amending the municipal code of the Township of Franklin, Somerset County, New Jersey, more particularly Chapter 236, Municipal Services, Schedule A, Canal Walk Enclave. The Township Attorney has approved the affidavit of publication, and a public hearing is in order.
Motion for public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The meeting is open for public discussion on this ordinance. Anyone interested in speaking, please raise your hand, and when recognized, give your name and address.
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the public
Seconded.
hearing on this ordinance.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Motion for passage of ordinance 4098-15.
Second.
Second.
Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Councilman Kramer.
Yes.
Councilman Prasad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman.
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella.
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Ordinance number 4100-15, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of Franklin, Somerset County, State of New Jersey, more particularly Chapter 222, Trees in its entirety, and Chapter 13, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Article 20, Shade Tree Commission, Section 13-84,
Maybe not.
Membership Appointment, Terms. The Township Attorney has approved the affidavit of publication, and a public hearing is in order.
Motion for public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. A meeting is open for public discussion on this ordinance. Anyone interested in speaking, please raise your hand, and when recognized, give your name and address.
See no one come forward from the public, Mayor. A motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Move for final passage.
Second.
Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Okay. We are at the consent agenda resolutions. The items A through N, as listed on the consent agenda portion of this meeting, are presented to the Township Council for adoption.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Okay. Let me see. Are there any nominations for boards, committees, and commissions? Okay. Seeing none. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, there are two items that are listed on the agenda. There are actually two other items, E&J Equities versus Franklin and Dunbar Homes versus Franklin, that need to be added to the executive session also.
And, Mr. Mayor, can you enunciate the other two?
Well, the other one is Racasano versus Franklin, which is listed on the agenda. And then the last is the SCAP building negotiations.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to now go into executive session?
So moved.
Seconded.
Ms. McCarthy, will you please poll the council?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Francois?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Kramer? Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
At this time, the Township Council will adjourn to executive session to discuss litigation, Racasano litigation, and SCAP building negotiations. No other actions will be taken by this Township Council at the conclusion of the executive session. Therefore, the recording of this meeting will end now. Good night.